Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we have a general market update for the cryptocurrency market. I am joined by my colleague Aliknak. Austin, thank you for joining today.
What's going on? Can you hear me? Am I coming through okay?
Yes, we can hear you great. Before we get started, I do want to give a quick announcement that OBR is actually announcing that we are releasing our first articles of merchandise. Here is one example of our hats. This is the white on black. And you know, the merchandise is very high quality. I will say I actually like wearing this hat a lot. I know most of the other staff at OBR are feeling the same way. We got an early batch, but that will be releasing on June 1st. So if you're interested, be sure to check that out. All right, Austin. So I know we're going to cover the total market cap, Bitcoin, Ethereum.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. We're going to cover. What do you want to start with?
Well, I first want to premise today was originally supposed to be a video continuing our altcoin series where we were going to talk about. I believe we were going to talk about Audius, which is a music streaming platform with, you know, obviously a cryptocurrency embedded into it to compensate artists. But we'll go over that project here probably in the future sometime. But we felt it was more important to go over the broader cryptocurrency market at this point in time because, you know, a lot is going on and, you know, there's kind of blood in the streets right now as far as altcoins go. And even Bitcoin is like kind of, you know, playing with fire. So today, instead of doing the altcoin video, we figured we'd go over the entire market, kind of give our thoughts, our predictions, our forecasts, where we see things going.
Absolutely.
And you know, a lot of our analysis today will be both based off of fundamentals as well as technicals. A lot of technical stuff though, and we have a variety of charts to go over. So if you have any thoughts before we get started, Logan, go ahead and say those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to get into this. There's actually a good bit to cover, and you know, we have a lot of really high quality info ready for this video. So the one thing that I will say is everything that we say right now is going to revolve around the fact that we are seeing incredible discounts in the cryptocurrency market. And while we may indeed come a little bit lower, while that is a chance, you know, I think it's safe to say, Austin, these are great prices to at least initially start accumulating more.
I think a slow dollar cost average is not a bad decision to make right now. However, I would be very slow with it, right? Don't feel as though you need to start, you know, get half your position in by next week.
Right.
Definitely take your time. It's okay if price takes off a little bit without you if we see a move to the upside, right? Just be very patient. That's how you're going to get your best average cost in this market. So
love that.
Unless we're at the bottom right now, then, you know, go all in. there's no way of knowing that.
Right. Unfortunately, we don't have our crystal ball here today.
Yeah, I left it. I left it in the other room. I'll have to go grab it. Yeah, so the first chart we're going to start out by acknowledging is Bitcoin. This is a 3-day chart macro. Honestly, we can zoom in. We can take a look at just the current price action. We've been in this nasty consolidation for how long now? Since our bottom, roughly about 15 days. So 2 weeks now, we've been just kind of bouncing around in this consolidation. It does seem as though the market wants to head lower. There's a lot of weakness, and it does seem as though, you know, if we were to look at this from like a rectangle or a box perspective, right? Bitcoin seems to want to be spending a lot of its time kind of down low here, right? We can see how we're kind of fading out right down here. So I do think that Bitcoin looks a little weak right now, and I think the probability of us breaking down, maybe coming back down to 25K in the short term is very feasible.
Yeah.
And you know, what would that look like for the broader cryptocurrency market? Well, it surely would not be pretty for altcoins, right? And so before we go into altcoins and in Bitcoin too much, I do want to start by the total cryptocurrency market cap. Let's get rid of the wave counts for a sec. We'll get into that in a minute. This is the total cryptocurrency market cap with every cryptocurrency in existence just kind of piled into one. And, you know, you get, you know, the total market cap. And right now that is currently sitting around 1.167 trillion. Our all-time high sits around 3 trillion. So right now we're at, you know, roughly a 50% discount. Or even more than that, I believe, 62% discount from all-time highs in the cryptocurrency market. So a lot of money has left the market over the past few weeks to months, and you know, no surprise, prices have gone down. There is blood in the streets to a certain extent. You know, people are losing money comparative to when we were at all-time highs. So again, this is perfectly normal. This is a perfectly normal corrective process in the market, but it leaves the question: where will we be heading in the short to midterm, even the long term, right? And I honestly think the long-term perspective is where a lot of people tend to focus when they're looking to go about their cryptocurrency investments, right? I mean, unless you trade it.
They should be at least.
Yeah. I think that the long-term potential in crypto by far outweighs, you know, your short-term to midterm potential gains, right?
Right.
So, or just opportunity in general. But right here we can see I have labeled a 5-wave Elliott wave impulse move. If you aren't too familiar around Elliott wave, it's essentially just the counting of moves in a market, right? An impulse wave is counted by numbers, and a corrective wave is counted by letters, right? And typically a impulse wave, or all the time an impulse wave, is categorized by 5 waves, right? And we can see here, right, our first wave, which was back in the summer of 2019. We had our corrective wave back in COVID. We had a very elongated third wave that brought us really up to our all-time highs in cryptocurrency. We did actually see an all-time high after. It's debatable if that was part of the same impulse wave, but I personally think that we're in a corrective wave at that point. But we got brought up for our third wave, and now we're coming down to our fourth wave. And a lot of people, might be thinking, what happens after the fourth wave? Well, I do think that's possible that we come up for a 5th wave on the macro side of things and greatly surpass that previous high of $3 trillion. But in the short term, we do have some price targets to keep an eye on for our fourth wave. And that is, technically around the level of $851 billion for the total cryptocurrency market cap. And that would be, a pretty sizable correction from the prices that we're at right now, maybe another 35%, depending on what we see. We could also go back down to the high back in 2017 that we saw in the cryptocurrency market, which was around 760 billion. So I do think that the market has some more room to fall in the short term. Whether or not we see some bounces, I think that's possible. But as of right now, in the short term, we definitely have some room to fall. But I do expect us to get bought back up rather quickly as we approach these levels under $1 trillion for the total cryptocurrency market cap. And a lot of people will probably recognize that this chart is very similar to Bitcoin. That's because most of the market cap is taken up by Bitcoin, so they share a very similar chart, Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Right.
So yeah, Logan, if you have any thoughts on
absolutely
total cryptocurrency market cap.
Yeah, I have some very similar price targets. I have 850 to 830 billion. And I like your little line here that we have at the low of wave A, because that really highlights the make or break situation we're actually facing right now in Bitcoin and in the total market cap. If we do decide to break lower on that continuation pattern that Austin showed just earlier, the last chart that we were on, and we do make a new low on total, then we most likely will find our way coming down to 850-ish, right, that range. But if we do bounce, Austin, I think that it's safe to say that there's definitely a chance that we are indeed in a flat correction. And if we do bounce from these levels, it's definitely worthy to, see the possibility that we could head higher from here.
That's absolutely possible, and that it's kind of hard to determine if that's the case right now. But Logan's right. If we do see a pop off of this level around 1.13 trillion, give or take a few billion dollars, if we do see a pop off here, it's definitely possible that could serve as a local bottom, right? We don't have to head lower. I think this is the trade that everyone's kind of thinking right now, and for that not to happen, for people not to get their buys right down here, would make a lot of sense. It seems like something that the market would do. So it's absolutely possible that we bounce from here, but is it probable? That's where the question becomes a little blurry, right?
It's difficult to pick bottoms.
Yeah, I would not be trying to look for bottoms. So that's why dollar cost averaging is so important in this market. But regardless, so we kind of know that the total cryptocurrency market is very bearish right now. Even just we'll move on from this chart in just one moment. But if we go over to a 4-hour chart, we can actually see that we are in what seems to be like a zigzag, right? We have our 5 waves here, 3 waves, and then another 5-wave move to the downside. So a very clear, essentially ABC. That could play out further to the downside, but yeah, keep an eye out for that. So we'll see what happens in the short term.
I will be linking our Elliott Wave educational call in the top hand of this video, so be sure to check that out if you want to know more about Elliott Wave and Fibonacci.
Please do, yep. All right, moving on. Let's go over to Total 2. So this is the total cryptocurrency market cap excluding Bitcoin. So it's essentially the same thing as this chart, only we're taking Bitcoin out of the conversation. And you can see here that the total cryptocurrency market cap without Bitcoin is currently sitting around 624 billion. And I think, we did break down from kind of this rising consolidation here. And it has a very similar wave count to that of our other chart on the total cryptocurrency market cap. But I do think that we could possibly come back down to revisit 2017 highs around 475 billion. And that would make for another 25% to the downside. And of course, we can continue dropping lower than this. I do think altcoins might have a little bit of a harder time during this entire corrective process than Bitcoin. And we're going to be getting into that here in a moment. But yeah, altcoins definitely a little bit weaker than Bitcoin, and that makes a lot of sense.
That does make a lot of sense.
Yep.
Would you be dollar cost averaging in differently on your blue chips versus your alts?
So when we say blue chips, what is
Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Mean? Yeah, okay, so that's what I was going to say. When I think of blue chips and crypto, I just think of Bitcoin and Ethereum. I would definitely be much more aggressive with Bitcoin and Ethereum dollar cost averaging as we start to head lower, right? Like if you see Ethereum for $1,500, if you see Ethereum for $1,100 or even $1,000, I think you'd be doing yourself a huge disservice by not taking advantage of buying at those prices. Can it go down lower from that? Sure. I mean, like Ethereum was at $600 not long ago, and I think a lot of people that are new to the space don't realize that. So I mean, we could absolutely come back down to revisit those levels.
Yes.
But even if you do buy, let's say at $1,500 or $1,000, we come back down to $600. Does that make that buy bad? Not really, right? I still think that that's a fairly good buy, and you'll see yourself in green with a reasonable amount of time, right? So as we start to head lower, I would start to say dollar cost averaging into blue chips is a wise thing to do. So yeah, and you could see that this correction is very much underway for both the total cryptocurrency market cap and the altcoins as well. So moving on, let's go over here to the ETH Bitcoin chart, and this essentially shows Ethereum's strength relative to Bitcoin, right? The Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, and right now one Ethereum is worth 0.06 Bitcoin, right? So 6% of a Bitcoin is one Ethereum. And we can see here that we actually did lose this rising support here. It actually did provide what seems to be a head and shoulders. It could be debated if it was one or not. It seems to be one, though, from my perspective.
I'd agree.
This neckline was broken pretty cleanly. And since we broke that neckline, Bitcoin has actually been outperforming the entire market. And you're going to say, well, Bitcoin has been red. How has it been outperforming the entire market? It's
Just
not that
red.
Bitcoin has been... Right. It's not that Bitcoin has been rising against the entire market, but Bitcoin has been holding its value against the entire market, right? So when we see stuff like Ethereum making strong moves to the downside, Bitcoin is still consolidating, right? Right now, as we speak, we are moving to the downside, but for the most part, Bitcoin has been holding up much stronger than that of altcoins, right? And that's why we see that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation kind of going down like this, right? So if the trend is our friend, it would make sense for Bitcoin dominance to continue to rise, right? And that brings us to our next chart here. Bitcoin dominance is on the rise. We actually did break a pretty gnarly resistance, and we got above that. And the moment we broke, man, we did have a very nice pop here. And this essentially shows the percent dominance that Bitcoin has over the market. So right now, if you take the entire cryptocurrency market, 46% of all that money is tied up in Bitcoin. Right. And as altcoins start to get beat up a little bit more and lose value against Bitcoin, Bitcoin dominance will rise. That's why in bear markets, right, 2018, 2019, we can see Bitcoin dominance go on a pretty strong move to the upside. And then what happened 2020, 2021, Bitcoin dominance fell because we saw altcoins really making a run and really kind of taking up some more of that market dominance. That's why if we go to total 2, right, we can see this was actually at 1.7 trillion, more than half of the market at one point was in altcoins, right? So pretty impressive stuff.
Definitely.
When considering Bitcoin dominance. Now, could this continue? Yes, I think Bitcoin could absolutely go to 50% dominance or even higher, depending on how long this corrective phase lasts. So I think right now, objectively speaking, your money will be much safer in Bitcoin rather than any other cryptocurrency asset.
Seems that way.
Yeah. Now, does that mean that you should sell everything and just move everything into Bitcoin? No, I don't think that's the proper way to be thinking unless you're a Bitcoin maximalist. But you might have to hold through some tough times right now in altcoins, as I do think they have a little bit further to drop. So
yeah,
but it'll just be providing good buying opportunities in the long term if you're buying solid fundamental projects, right? Because I do think there are going to be a good majority of projects that don't make it back from this correction, unfortunately. So
probably Luna.
Well, Luna is actually Luna Classic now, and they're coming out with Luna 2.0. We see Gemini, we see FTX, KuCoin, all these exchanges supporting it. So maybe Luna 2.0 pumps. Maybe that's like the chain link of last market cycle, right? I don't know if you were aware, Logan, but during the last bear market, there were actually some altcoins that performed pretty well, and Chainlink was one of them. It seems like during the bear market, there's always that one-off crypto that kind of performs well against the entire market. And
Monero has been performing rather well the last couple of weeks.
Yep, and we just actually recently made a video on that. Let's go take a look at XMR. Blah, 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 blah. Why is it only Bitfinex? I want the, yes, this is what we want. Yeah, it's still down, but relatively speaking, what is it down from all-time highs? Man, this turned into a Monero video very quickly. 65%, down 65%. So
right,
yeah,
just the last couple of weeks, it's been doing okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that definitely comes from like that privacy narrative that we spoke about. It didn't really come into full effect just yet, but definitely seeing a little bit of it. And actually, Monero pumped pretty good when it broke this resistance line here. If we go back to replay, right? I mean, like just a few weeks ago, Monero looked really, really good, but unfortunately we did end up seeing a retracement of that move and invalidation. But you know,
the move Monero entirely erased.
yeah, essentially, right? So all in all, my closing thoughts for this video and the general idea that I'm kind of proposing is that I do think cryptocurrency is not done with its corrective phase yet. I do think that we will see lower prices, and I think that altcoins will be getting beat up a little bit more than Bitcoin, probably a lot more than Bitcoin. So please be aware of that, manage your risk properly, and you know, keep on hodling your crypto. Only hold solid fundamental projects, because as I said, a lot of the shit coins, a lot of the shit projects that kind of sprung up during this raging bull market that we saw up here, I think will end up going to zero. So please make sure that you are invested into solid fundamental projects if you want to hold through times like this, because I don't think, like, no offense to my Safe Moon homies, right? I'm not trying to be mean to y'all, but
I'll be mean to you.
Yeah, just be aware that, you know, your investments might not reach those highs ever again. So.
No, I like those closing thoughts a lot. And, you know, the number one thing I want to stress that Austin said was, you know, this is a corrective phase. While the market is indeed in a downtrend as of right now, there will be brighter days for crypto. I think that is, you know, quite possibly a fact, quite possibly objective. So, you know, I'm looking forward to those days. I know everybody else is. Just like we were saying earlier, slowly dollar cost average in, manage your risk, because we could see some more lows made, and be very attentive to what happens with Bitcoin's price action in the next couple of weeks. If we make a new low, that's very indicative that we will most likely come lower. You know, I have a price target at 22,000. I know there's a very extended price target at 14,000. So a couple of levels to look out for. But if we do bounce from these levels in the next couple of weeks when you're watching this video, then, you know, maybe things are starting to look brighter. But we will talk to you closer about then and see where we are at that point.
Yep, and I just want to bring up what you said. 22K is a wonderful price target for Bitcoin. 22,000 I think is very reasonable. And a lot of confluences kind of line up with that level for a few reasons. Not only was, you know, 20,000, 19,000 the top back in 2017. So, right, we could draw a nice horizontal level right on over like that. But we also have our 200 and 300 week moving averages lining up around those levels, which is around $21,000 to $23,000. And if you haven't noticed, right, if you haven't been around or been looking at the macro side of cryptocurrency, these moving averages are the bear market bottoms, very evidently shown here back in 2015, 2018, the COVID crash, and perhaps now. So I think, like I said, I don't think now is a bad time to start dollar cost averaging into the market, as we are approaching support levels very, very quickly. And that doesn't mean that we're just going to bounce right off of these things and move to all-time highs. You know, maybe we consolidate for 6 months around here, right, and do something like that, right, and then maybe take one more stab down and then run back up, right? Really shake. I think this market might try to shake a lot of the not serious people out, because not everyone's going to get rich, unfortunately, and not everyone's going to make it to the dance.
Thank you.
Right. Yes. And the market will have ways of doing that. Yep.
I think that's a good way of closing off. Not everybody is going to make it to the dance. Austin, thank you for joining us today. That was a fantastic analysis.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Alrighty. Well, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Happy trading.
Peace.